All right, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. I'm just
Okay.
going to share your video into the group.
Yeah, so let's see. It says we're going on YouTube. Let's see if it works. If
Okay.
it does, we'll go back live. Yeah, we're going on YouTube. Okay, so we're live on YouTube. So we're going to just do it this way.
Yeah.
Okay, we are live on YouTube right now, Heather. So we're just going to go with this. I'll copy the link and drop it over to Facebook, and
Okay.
then we'll just go ahead and get started.
Okay. So you're sharing that to Facebook on your fan page?
Yep, I will share it on my business page really quick. Hey, everybody on YouTube, I am so sorry. I apologize so much for the technical difficulties. Heather is my guest today for an interview, and her business is Equine Energy Solutions, and we're going to be talking about that, but we had intended to go live on Facebook, and Facebook is not cooperating, so we are live on YouTube. This is the first time for me to be live on YouTube, which is really exciting. So I guess why not just, instead of getting your feet wet, just jump in, right? So that's what we're doing now, is we are going to jump in and go live on YouTube because live on Facebook was not working. And then we will get the interview started. And we'll go from there. So for those of you that don't know me, or you're seeing me just randomly for the first time, because this is a live video on YouTube and I don't usually do live video on YouTube, I just want to welcome you. My name is Jennifer Lonnberg. My channel is called Embodied Grace, and I do interviews every so often with people who are in the realm of working with energy, or working with natural medicine, or doing psychic readings, all of those things, anything and everything that has to do with life, because life is all of those things, right? So today I have my guest Heather Mowers, who is here, and we had a really great interview on Awake TV a few weeks ago, and it was so interesting to me that I wanted to have her back as a guest, and I wanted to bring it to just on a public setting so that we could all get to hear from her and hear about her work. And we had talked about the energy that she does and how it really meshes a lot with not only the horse, but also the rider, whoever's working with or riding that horse, and how that really seems to interact. Like, to me, the one thing that I can say is I love horses because they're so intuitive and they're so ready to talk. And so that is kind of why I wanted to have her back, because we totally forgot the other day to even think about talking about your book. So Heather, introduce yourself a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and continue to share this out. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you and your business. And then I want to start talking about your book after that.
Hey, awesome. I'm really happy to be here. We had so much fun on our first interview. It was awesome. I like to call myself the connection catalyst, because the way I see things, I just don't think we can be right with the horse unless we're right with ourselves first. So what I like to do is just sizzle all that baggage so that we're open, available, and we can connect easier with the horse. And it's just been something that I've been doing for so long. I didn't even know I was doing it. It's actually so much fun. The horses give me incredible feedback. They're just so open and receptive, like you say. They've been amazing. They've been my biggest teacher throughout most of my adult life, actually. They've been my biggest teacher.
So I love that. And I like how you say you've been doing it all along. So one thing that I like to talk about with people, and this is, I can't remember if we covered this on the last video or not, but it doesn't matter because it's when everybody can have access to. So the one thing that I like to explain to people when they're first kind of getting their feet wet, because I have no idea who's going to see us on YouTube. So I'm going to do a little bit of background here just in case. So whenever I talk to people about what is energy work and what does that mean and all of those kind of things, whether it means horses or whether it's on humans, it doesn't matter. Energy work is energy work is energy work. And I've actually worked a couple times with horses, which is not really I don't consider myself an animal communicator or anything, but the energy is the energy. And the way that that I've seen the animals, they communicate with me at least a lot in pictures by showing me what's going on. But the way that I like to explain energy work to people is we inherently have the ability to help heal. And all you have to think about is if you see a little kid fall down and get hurt, like your instinct is to pick them up, make them feel better, give them a Band-Aid or whatever it is that they need, right? But that instinct to want to nurture. And I think everybody has that in them. Almost everybody has that.
I think so too. Anybody can do this.
Right. And I think that all that the difference is of those of us that do energy work as something that we offer, it's just because we've learned how to intentionally focus that energy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much the difference between me or anybody else, is just I can focus a little bit more. I've cleared out the debris that may be clouding my vision, and I can just see a little bit more clearly because I have a little less cobwebs. But really, I'm no different than anybody else.
And
It's
I love that you say that, because I say that all the time. And it's so funny because everybody's like, well, what are your gifts? And I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. What are your gifts?
yeah, yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
what do you want to learn? What do you want to do? So it's
yeah,
really, really interesting. So I love that we talked about how intuitive horses are, and I love the point that you make about having to get through our own crap, because that's one of the
yeah,
things that I teach on the most. And everybody's like, but you're a spiritual teacher. I want to learn how to be a good psychic. Well, clear your own crap.
yeah. And you'll be guided. I mean, I was totally guided this way. Like, I had stumbled across I didn't even know who this Warwick Warwick Schiller. I just was introduced to this guy not that long ago, like through a YouTube video. And the interesting thing was it was just a switch of mindset for him as well. And it really does come down to mindset. You can easily do this. I'm not even sure where I was going with this Warwick character. I forget anyway, but it doesn't matter. It's just, it's amazing when the light comes on and you follow the nudges where it will take you. Had I known a year ago or even 10 years ago where I was going to be, I had no idea. I just keep following the nudges. Oh, I'm pushed here. Okay. I say yes. I say yes to everything that presents to me. And it's just been awesome.
So it's interesting that you say that, because the same thing. So I've always been psychic, intuitive, can see whatever. I don't care what label you want to put on it.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
usually say that I'm psychic because I don't really um, feel like I'm a medium. Like, I can talk to people that have passed over, but to me, a medium is somebody who talks to dead people. And
Yeah.
so, and that's, I can, it's just not my wheelhouse. That's not where I thrive at. I work with Jesus and the angels a lot. So a lot of what I do is about healing, but a lot of what comes up is people, their own beliefs about their own value and their own worth, and if
Yes.
they're worthy to do that. Once you can kind of get through all the BS that you've learned saying you're not worthy of something, then that's usually where the magic starts to happen. When you start
Yeah.
believing, I am valuable, I am worth something, I can
Yeah.
have wants and dreams and desires and those kind of things. Um, and it's on a totally different level. It's such a spiritual, like, it was such a spiritual, um, I can't even say awakening, because I've always been awake on some level, but it was such
Yeah.
a shift in the way that I do life. So I'm
Right.
like you, 10 years ago, people that
Oh,
knew me then would not even recognize
no,
who I am
not
now.
even.
So
I don't even recognize my old self. And I just remember where I was going with this Warwick Schiller fellow. I mean, he's changed his mindset. But what really got me thinking is horses will challenge us. And it really got me thinking, well, what horses have challenged me to spiritually grow? And the first number one thing that came up was being afraid of life and how that shows up. You're afraid of losing your job. You're afraid of what your friends are going to think. You're afraid of everything in life. And what the horses have taught me with that is, because I was so afraid to live, it showed up in the horses. They were jumpy. They were scared. They didn't know what was going on. And neither one of us could relax because we're feeding off of each other. So that was the number one challenge that they brought to me. There was no said difficult course that really gave me a run for my money, but it was just little bits, little bits, little bits. But that was the number one. I had to look through my fear of being seen, of being afraid of success, afraid of failing, and then you're so stuck, you can't even see which way to go. So they really helped liberate me in that. Sorry about the sun.
that's okay.
It's so bright.
You're like, all of a sudden it's so bright. um it's amazing to me how much of this stuff blends both ways, like, because I know that you're learning from horses, and of course I work with
Yes.
other people, but it's all the same lessons and it's all the same work. And
Yes.
I think it's really valuable to really look at the fears. Like that's one of the things that I do too with people is, and I know that you say you work with horses, but you work a lot with the people that
Yes.
either own the horses or ride the horses or those kind of things. But one thing I forgot to ask you about, and I think we kind of touched on it, but I don't really think I got to ask you, was how, like, have you always been around horses? Is this something like, did you grow up in a farm? Somebody's blocking
No.
the screen.
Yes, yes. Somebody's blocking the sun for me. Thank you. Actually, I was a city kid, and I grew up in the city, right in the heart. I'm actually a Canadian, and I was born and raised in Calgary, and I was a complete city kid. And then all of a sudden, I mean, this is what started the whole thing. A friend of mine had like a little acreage, and they decided to get this horse. And I'm like, why would you get this horse? Because he had said that, you know, nobody could ride her. She just had a foal. She chases people away. I'm thinking, why would you want a horse like that? I had no idea. But then when they finally unloaded her, she was just like an average sized little chestnut. And she was in the corral, and I was sitting on the grass, and I'm like looking at her in between the boards. And she's looking at me because, like, who are you? I don't know who you are. I got to be wary. And I couldn't get enough of her. I could not get enough of this girl. And the funny thing was, because of her, I've written about her before. I call her Julie. I can't actually remember her name, but Julie seems like a beautiful name for her. I actually the city kid, went to a Western coaching program, and I learned how to ride horses. And it was so funny because it was a short crash course into horses and husbandry and all that stuff. And my instructor at the time said, pick that horse's hoof. And I was mortified. I'm like, what? So, I mean, that was probably, oh my goodness, like 20 plus years ago. And then from there, I never looked back. I've been involved with horses ever since then. And I bet you it's been since 93. So it's been a long time. So from a city kid to all of a sudden involved in horses, and the journey just evolved from there.
That's awesome. So it's kind of interesting because we have opposite stuff, because I'm a small town country kid, and I was like, we were raised around it all the time. And I can remember, so I grew up with horses, and my favorite horse was a paint that my grandpa had. I think I was around 8. Her name was Ginger. She was my favorite. And then we've kind of had horses all along, but my mom got married when I was like, I want to say I was like 18. She got remarried, and the guy that she married had mules. And so we then started doing everything with mules. And you want to talk about smart and stubborn.
Yeah, they're so smart.
They're super, super smart and super, super stubborn. But it's so funny because they're the same way. They will do a lot of the things that the people, or that horses do as well. Right. May not be as graceful about it, but energetically they still kind of have the same personalities and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's really fun because and the one thing that people sometimes don't know about mules is they will stomp. Like if something's under their feet, they will stomp. And that's just something that's kind of inbred to them. And I don't know if it's to keep their feet safe or what it is, and I never even thought to ask actually when I was around them, but my kids have no fear. And so when they were little, I used to have to watch, because my kids, if they got outside, they were in the crowd, like they were in the pen out there. And there was a couple of them that we weren't real sure. And my kids never had any trouble. And I think it's because they didn't ever have any nervousness around them. And so like, they never had any, like I can't tell you how many times I would look out and I was like, yeah, crap, outside, they're outside in the crowd again. And so, but luckily they never did. And they both rode, and it was never had any problems. But I think it's that thing of what's internally going on inside of the person that's working with them is how they're going to respond.
Exactly. I've seen it many times. Even one of the mares I used to have, she was a little fart. Like she was a nippy, cow kicking kind of a little thing. And she'd pretend that she would terrorize you, but really she was just a doll. Like we loved her. And when this little kid approached her, it was like a switch hit, and she was the sweetest thing ever. And you would have thought 5 minutes ago she was the meanest thing you ever saw. And I was just so blown away that it was just immediately that switch where she was just so kind and so gentle. Not that she wasn't already, but she just presented herself like, I'm gonna get you. Yeah. And it was incredible how they just switch it off. Like kids are so open and available. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then I still do think too that each horse has its own personality.
Yeah, they do.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So that's really, really cool. So I don't want to forget about this. I usually try to keep these interviews to only about half an hour, and I don't want to forget to ask you about your book. So let's talk about that now so that we don't forget.
Okay. Well, it took me a while to write it. I didn't really know what it was about, but it just felt like it had to come out. So it's basically how, like, my journey into self-healing, how I went from the person that was afraid to live and do things with herself to the evolution of meeting the horses, and how my connection to animals was really strong even as a child. Um, and it was just an evolution. I talk about a few horse stories in there. And then there's a neat little twist to my book where I actually have had horses come to me and they give me information. So I just call them horse interviews, and it's pretty amazing. It kind of blew my mind. The first horse that I ever just kept talking to me and talking to me and bugging me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'll write it down. So it was literally like, I just sat down and we started talking, and I'd ask him questions and he'd answer me, and I'd ask more and he'd answer me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But like I said, the me that would have wrote that book a few years ago, I would never have been open to any of that. Like they brought so much magic to my life. It's crazy. And the self-healing journey, I put it there so that other people can see, because when I grew up, I was so disconnected. There was no connection. Any connection I had was ripped away. And that made it even more important for me to connect to myself. Because when we're kids, we always look for outside validation to say who we are. So when I wasn't getting validation, of course, I was looking to the outside world. And then when I finally figured out I had to connect to myself first, then things got better. And then, oh my goodness, I can connect with horses, which I've always been able to do the animal thing. And that, I think, was my saving grace, is that I always had that kind of a connection to an animal. And it doesn't matter what animal. But it's definitely a journey from the starting point, the healing journey, all the way to the other end where there's magic on the other side.
Mm-hmm. So I love that. I tell my clients this all the time. Like, it sounds like such BS and cliche to say you have to love yourself first, right?
Yeah.
But everybody I know that does the work that you and I
Yeah.
do, like, you have to learn to love yourself first. Like, it really
Yeah.
comes down to that. And so
Exactly.
it does sound like such BS and such cliche. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I'm like, every new client, I'm like, I know it sounds like I'm throwing this crap at you, but it really
Yeah.
is something. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's really hard to figure out what that actually means. Like, to really
Yeah.
learn what it means to actually love who you are and love yourself and love that you're here experiencing this human experience on the planet and all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So um it's getting past what you think that we should do, right? Like, there's so many
Yeah.
shoulds of how we're supposed to act and what we're supposed to do and
Oh,
how we're supposed to be and all of those kind of things. And I know it's very similar because with my first book, it was freedom from all of that is what set me
absolutely.
free.
Yeah.
Freedom from all
Absolutely.
of those things is really what set me free to begin my own transformational path and
Yeah.
journey and get to where I am right now too.
Yeah.
So what is like some of your favorite advice that you would give to somebody? I don't know how long we've been on because
I don't know either.
we had technical difficulties so bad in the beginning. I think we're around 20
Yeah.
minutes. Um, so yeah, it looks like we've been on about 18 minutes. So what
Okay.
would be some really good, like, if you could give a horse person, so somebody who has a horse, what's like your all-time best advice regardless?
Wow, that's
I'm
such
putting
a
you on
good
the
question.
spot, huh?
Yeah, it's a good question. The best advice I could give any horse person, I'm always telling all the ladies in my group, I love my group, they're an amazing group of women, is breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. It is so important. We forget. Even I haven't ridden in a long time. My husband rides, and it's happens so often that we forget to breathe around the horse. Like, when you actually take a deep breath, like, I'm also studying to become an acupuncturist, and according to traditional Chinese medicine, the kidney grabs the air. So the idea behind that, and it's simplified, is when you breathe into your belly, and that keeps you in your body, keeps you relaxed, at least I find it does. And it also, when you're breathing like that, the horse breathes with you and they relax. When you're relaxed, everything's possible. Everything is absolutely possible when you're relaxed, no problem.
It's I
amazing.
actually love that that's what you're coming up with today, because I have been saying for the last few weeks, because I've been doing this work for probably at least 5 years, right? So sometimes I feel like a broken record, but here lately, the one thing that keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back is getting back to the basics. And it's so true. Like I remember, God, 4 or 5 years ago, I was teaching, this was back when I was still in my house, and I was teaching like meditation like I would have it every so many weeks. I would do like a meditation where we did like 6 weeks of learning how to meditate. And the very first thing I would have everybody do was lay down on my floor and breathe and like feel their diaphragm and actually feel themselves breathing, because almost everybody only breathes from up here. They forget that we need to breathe from the diaphragm. So I always joke and say, well, if you're a band nerd like I am or used to be, then you know how to breathe, because we had to learn how to breathe from our gut to be able to play the instrument, that whatever it was that we were playing. So, or if you in choir, then any of those kind of, like, that's the great thing about those things, is they really do teach you how to breathe. So getting back to the basics of just breathing like a baby breathe, because babies breathe the way that they're supposed to. So it's us getting back to that. The one thing
put together, sorry,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just put together a course on connecting with your horse. And one of the very first topics that I talk about is breathing. It's like so important. I put it right there. It's got to do it. And then I give them, a few other exercises so that they can approach the horse differently. And when they're a little bit more open, that they can detect in the horse's body what's going on. So there's 3 different exercises that I put in the course, just so that when they get to that point, they can actually, like, they're receptive enough that they can actually get the information. And then I'm running a challenge this coming weekend that is going to get them in the zone, for lack of better words, so that is even more amplified. So pretty excited about that, and how it's between the breathing and getting in the zone, as I put it. You really have the ability to really connect with anybody, especially your animals, your horses.
Right. I love that. That's awesome. We'll have to, when we get off the call, make sure you shoot me that information, and I'll drop it underneath the YouTube link so that we can definitely get that out to people, because I love that. Awesome. What I was going to say is, the one thing that I remember about horses specifically is, like, if you stand with the horse and just put your hand like on their breastplate, like, it, to me, they will tell you anything that you need to know. Like, just instantly. They are so easy and ready to connect, and they just are so loving, and it's just amazing. They're so amazing to me because they're so powerful, and they're so incredible. So I want to ask too, before we get off of the call, because if we go about 30 minutes, we still have about 7 or 8 minutes. So just curiosity, have you ever worked with Native American medicine, or like, do you do spirit animal totems or anything like that?
I have always wanted to work with a shaman. I haven't done it yet, but I did have an attunement from a shaman. He was from Poland, and he really kind of opened things up to me. This attunement came from Saint Germain, so I'm quite connected to Saint Germain. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing. So that really amped up the abilities. I was like getting words from horses. The pigeons are talking to me, birds are talking to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. So that really, really helped. But I've always wanted to work with a shaman. And there's so many different things that I have a strong interest in. So I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I go through shamanism and learn that? Because, it's fascinating to me. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I'm not really sure what else I'm supposed to be doing. It's always unfolding. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
I love it. I was just curious because I love like spirit animal meetings and things like that. And I've always felt really drawn to that. And I know that I have a tie somehow to Native American.
Yeah. Same
I
here.
just,
Yeah.
some of it, it's just always made sense to me. Like I wouldn't even say resonated, because like at that time I didn't even know what that word meant, but it just always made sense to me. Like, of
Yeah.
course you would use sage in your house. Like, why wouldn't you? You know,
Yeah.
like little
Of
things
course
like
the
that.
animals.
Yeah,
Of
of course
the animals talk to
Have you
you. Of
not seen?
course. Like,
Have you not seen the Disney
yeah.
show? Like, do you not watch Spirit? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
I really love it wherever I am. And if I'm asking for a sign, if this is, you know, the thing to do or whatever the question is, and I'll see a random animal, like I'll ask for a specific animal to show up because I'm so connected to them. So I do follow the animal signs,
Oh,
their
I love that.
messages and needs. Yeah, I do all of that good stuff too. I love that stuff.
Yeah, because I love the idea that the horse is all about, because they're so graceful to me, but it's so
Yes.
funny because if you get kind of to the base of it, it's like they set your soul free. And doesn't that, it just
Oh,
makes you think of like the wild horses in
well,
Oklahoma or
yeah.
something, like just set your soul
Yeah.
free and just run. So I
And
just was curious, like if you had ever made that connection, or
I would love to make a connection and sit with a shaman. I think they would blow my mind. I don't think I'm anything spectacular. Like I've always been an empath. I've always been an animal empath. To me, that's just like second nature, like breathing. But to really hone in and really be like, that would just, that's my goal, is to be
yeah.
so connected and be that wild horse. There's a deep calling for me. Remember we had this conversation
Yeah,
about the wild horses?
horses.
There's
Yeah.
a deep calling for the wild horses. I don't know what it is yet, but I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. Oh my gosh, I feel like we could just keep talking forever. So I probably, let me see,
Yeah, we
we're
could.
right at about 25 minutes. And I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to cut it off short, just because since it took us so long with all of the tech difficulties in the beginning, we'll go ahead and cut this short. But I really appreciate you coming back on live with me. Thank you for coming and talking to us about it today. I want to make sure that you send me the information for the challenge that you're doing this week. And also you said you had a course coming up.
I do. It is out, but I'm just adding more to it to really give it some, I don't know what you want to call it, some oomph, I guess.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I will get all that information for everybody. Those of you that are new to my channel, hello, welcome. Please subscribe, all of those good things. I've never been live on YouTube, so I do Facebook lives every once in a while, but I've never done YouTube. So why not, right? So to my channel. Again, my name is Jennifer Lonnberg, and my channel is Embodied Grace, and I talk about all things that are spiritual, all things that are personal, everything, because it's all about, I always say that there's 5 things. It's the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and galactic energies are all at play. So anything that fits within that, then I love to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Yeah. So I love that. So thank you so much for coming on today and being a guest, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer.
Okay.
I loved it.
Yep. Thank you. Bye, everybody.